It is getting increasingly difficult to be a legal concealed carrier in America. In Missouri, I'm fairly free, but there are certain cities, like especially you get into St. Louis County, you start running into some laws that just simply don't apply anywhere else in the state. But there are definitely three things that, regardless of where you are in this country, could land you in prison, even though you are doing your best to be a very legal and safe carrier of a firearm in the world. Well, what are these three? Now, before we get into it, I do want to take a moment and thank our sponsor, ES Power Drink, for not just supporting this channel, but for allowing me to consume Trinidad scorpion peppers, some of the hottest peppers in the world, in just a simple drink. And it has boosted my ability to lose weight. I'm almost at 40 pounds I've lost just in a couple months. And it's not just this, but it helps. It heats up my body. It boosts my immune system. It boosts my ability to burn fat. It increases my ability to sleep well and my outlook on life. But it also puts me in a position where it's kind of building up a tolerance to where maybe one day I can eat Trinidad scorpion peppers and reap the full benefit of it without killing my stomach. And I also want to add that there are millions of Americans taking toxic injections to lose weight. I just think this is probably a better way to go about it. That link is below. All right. Now, again, it's challenging to walk around this country and kind of know, well, am I okay carrying a gun here? Well, what about there? Because even though in Missouri I'm safe, I travel around this country a lot, and it varies from state to state. But there's definitely three things that are going to probably land you in prison if you make these mistakes as a concealed carrier. So let's just get straight into them. Number one, force on force. What I'm talking about is, by law, if somebody starts beating you up, you can't shoot and kill them. If somebody is throwing fists at you, then you can throw fists at them. If somebody breaks out a knife, well, now you can shoot them. It's a totally different story altogether. But you're allowed to match force with equal force is really how the law applies. If somebody comes up and shoves you and you shoot them dead, you're going to prison for murder, and you have to know that. Now, with that being said, there's also variables like if 3 or 4 people are beating you up, or if you're about to go unconscious and you think that this beating isn't going to stop until you're dead, there's some variables there too. But it's really if you're fearful for your life, meaning you believe this scenario is about to cost your life, that's when you can use the lethal force. So just be aware, you got to match force with force. You can't just somebody threaten you and you pull a gun on them and shoot them. You're going to prison for that. It has to be force on force, meaning weapons are involved or multiple people are on you, that sort of thing. So there you go. That's the number one way. Number two is kind of a foolish one, but it's the ammo you put in your gun. And kind of what I'm getting at is, I'm just going to give you an example. And I've talked about this on this channel, but be cautious. Many people are going to prison because of the ammo they're choosing, with judges saying, well, you chose that ammo specifically to cause the most damage, not just to defend your life, but to take somebody else's life. And so what I'm getting at is, like, if you go out and you buy Hornady zombie killer and you put it in your firearm, it's going to send up some red flags to the judge. And there's many judges in America who are going to send you to prison for that. Recently, judges have been sending people in prison for choosing a .40 caliber, a .357 Magnum versus some smaller calibers. So just be careful out there. Don't make it, like, for example, Hornady makes some great self-defense ammo. That's exactly the same ammo. It just isn't labeled zombie killer. Just be careful with the ammo you choose, simply because you may be held accountable for murder for this. Somebody could pull a gun out on you and you shoot them dead, but because you had zombie killer in there, you might be going to prison for murder. So just be careful out there with the calibers that you choose. Don't purposely try to show to the world that it's going to cause the most damage, if that makes sense. And finally, number 3, and this one's kind of a broad spectrum, and I alluded to it in the beginning, which is really fully understand your federal, state, county, and city laws, because they're going to vary. So, for example, I was in Pennsylvania recently. Vast majority of the state of Pennsylvania embraces guns. Bring in as many guns as you want. We just love guns. But then you get into like Philadelphia, and all of a sudden you're breaking the law by carrying in certain places, carrying certain ways. How have you stored your gun? I mean, there's so many things that can land you in prison just because you're dealing with some city ordinances that maybe never applied to you because you lived in the county over. So, and again, so here in Missouri, like I'm okay, but once I get into St. Louis, there's other rules that are applying at that point, and it's important you just be aware of them as you pass through those places. My least favorite thing to do is to drive through states like Illinois or California with guns in the car. Know what as you travel around, just know what laws are. And it's not just federal and state laws. It's going to be county laws. It's going to be city laws. And some of those city laws are pretty harsh, man. They're pretty brutal and very unconstitutional. So be aware of them. And my suggestion would just be avoid those cities and places altogether. But, like I just said, I was in Pennsylvania, which required me to pass through Illinois from Missouri. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other ways there, but not really. Because even if you go down to like Cape Girardeau in Missouri and cross the southern tip, you still go into Illinois for just a split second as you cross over the Mississippi and then that Ohio River. You still, it's hard to avoid, I guess is what I'm getting at. So just know what you're doing as you're traveling through different cities, different counties, different states. Be aware of those things, because those are going to be the things that are going to land you in prison. And here you are, you got your concealed carry permit, you took your classes, you're a safe carrier, maybe you have liability insurance for your firearm. You're doing all the right things, but you just can easily find yourself in a really, really, really terrible situation simply because you just weren't aware of kind of how this looks to judges, so to say. So there you go. Any thoughts or insight on it? I know there's a bunch more ways to find yourself in prison. I just thought these were the 3 biggest ones. Definitely put it in the comments below. I do want to take a moment and say that most people watch this channel, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, love guns.